Okay. So let's see. Last time we started with 6.1, we were talking about AI resistant and AI enhanced assignments, and then how we can use um, AI to kind of help create those. We're going to continue with 6.2 today, which is talking about rubrics and feedback systems. So our session goal, develop comprehensive, transparent rubrics and feedback systems with AI assistance that improve evaluation objectivity, clarity, and usefulness for student learning. We're going to master some techniques for creating fair assessment criteria that accounts for AI integration while maintaining high academic standards. I'm going to drop these success outcomes in the chat so that y'all can keep those as a guiding light. And what we're going to need, access to your favorite LLM chatbot. If you have an integrated assignment from session 6.1, we can use that to help. And then if you have any current rubrics in your classes, um, and maybe you can find an assignment that uses that rubric, um, and just have AI kind of look at it and see if it can make any improvements. And then your weekly reflection journal. All right, so as I was saying, got a little bit started late here. I was driving back from a conference where we were presenting on AI, and so one of the things we talked about was rubrics as a way to be more transparent for students, and kind of helping them be able to access the class. So on the site, on this Canvas page, which I'll put in the chat as well. Yeah, nice, good. We've got we've got a slide deck here. We've got a video, a podcast, and an infographic to go through. So I guess I could kind of talk about this real quick, and then, if y'all have anything else that you want to add to it, feel free to, hop off and talk about it. But I'm just going to go through this real quick because I want to make sure that we get in and start experimenting and exploring with the prompts on the next page. So beyond grading, architecting AI enhanced assessment systems. This is going to be a blueprint here for integrating transparency, objectivity, and generative AI into higher education evaluation. So we're always talking about assessment. We've got course learning outcomes, college-wide learning outcomes, program learning outcomes. How can we assess those? And so, rubric is one of those things that can help both the student and the instructor clearly show whether the outcome is met or not. So for the overview here, the evolution from static grading to dynamic assessment ecosystems, we need to develop comprehensive, transparent rubrics and feedback systems. We can use AI assistance, and it's going to improve the objectivity, clarity, and usefulness. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that today and experiment with that. So, as y'all know, transparency in learning and teaching, TILT, that improves the learning. Clear rubrics are not just for the grade, but it's also there to help the students understand the expectations and guide their learning efforts. AI enhances the consistency, so it's going to look at your rubric objectively, and I guess depending on the way you prompt it, it could reduce the bias that you bring into it. But then also, you remaining on the other edge of that, or sorry, the other end, and saying, okay, these are some rubric adjustments that I will keep, and these ones I'm not going to change because it's good right now as it is. Integration requires new criteria. So especially we have AI-enabled environments. They need explicit evaluation for if you're collaborating with AI and what you are bringing to it as the human. Okay. So modernizing this foundation, traditional elements, enhancing by AI. So the standard is the refined. We have clear performance criteria, must focus on specific observable behaviors and outcomes. That's um, something that when we're putting our outcomes together, we want to use, smart outcomes, specific, measurable, um, what's A? Accessible. I don't think that's it, but we do want them to be accessible, and we were talking about that earlier. Relevant, no, sorry, is achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Those are the SMART goals if we're going to try to make sure that they're super clear. We also want to add the performance levels, detailed descriptions of the quality standards across proficiency levels. So just making sure if you're making a rubric, you have those different levels on there, and it's clear to see, okay, if I do this, then I'm going to get this score. If I don't include these things, then I'm going to have a lower performance level. And then objective language, consistent, unbiased terminology is critical to reduce subjective interpretations. Um, mm, I mean, there's a lot of problem with you know, the bias that's baked into LLMs. So making sure you're aware of how to spot that. And this is something that we talked about in that presentation today about kind of learning the skill to double check the output. If you got an output and it's telling you about something, making sure that all voices and all perspectives are um, present and nothing's missing. And so we talked about in terms of AI literacy, learning how to use the AI to kind of check itself. So um, anyways, the enhancement here would be student-friendly communication using AI to translate rigid academic criteria into accessible language that diverse student populations can understand and apply immediately. This is another one where you can teach students how to take a text and make it simpler to understand. Um, if you're I teach a tech literacy class, and I've tried to simplify all the language because we have a lot of ESL learners in there. And so if there's any sort of jargon that they wouldn't know, either if they have to know that, then explaining what that is. But if they don't, if you can use another simpler word, then changing that. And then the value add AI tools can now generate comprehensive criteria and performance level descriptions based on raw learning objectives, speeding up the design. So using AI as a way to enhance. And I mean, maybe you have an assignment that you don't have a rubric and you've been meaning to put a rubric on it, but you just don't want to spend the time that it takes to come up with all of those levels. AI is really good and quick at making a 25-point assignment. It can give you, 5 categories and then 5 performance levels, and it can write down this is what a 5 looks like, this is what a 4, a 3, 2, 1. Um, and it does it very quickly. So we're going to work on that today. The new metrics here defining AI specific evaluation components. So to assess fairly in an AI enabled environment, Rubrics must explicitly evaluate the process of process. This is a notebook LM. Looks like it's having a repetition problem here. So let's see here. Where was I? The process of the process of collaboration and the distinct value of human insight. Um, we also talked about that, focusing on process over product. Showing your work, showing your uh, s- you know, providing the scratch paper and then making that part of the rubric. So like, how did they get to this point? So AI collaboration quality. So you can add in a criteria for assessing the appropriate and effective AI use. So if they do use AI, how did they use it? One of the uh, in our speech today, or in our talk, um, we had everybody create movie pitches for what the future would look like with AI. And so we had four different groups, and two of the groups have to make a utopian future. Like, what would it look like if everybody followed the eight principles of AI? And then what would a dystopian future look like? And we gave one group was allowed to use AI and one group was not allowed to use AI. So one utopian with, one utopian without. Um, and I asked them afterwards, once they gave the pitch, I said, "How did you use AI? Did you go like straight in to using it? Did you think of some ideas first and then pitch those to AI?" But both of the teams, which ended up, I made a GPT that they took their pitch, they gave their pitch to the GPT, and then the GPT ranked them. I trained it on a rubric, and then it gave the thing. I might have it here actually. Let me see here. I was on ChatGPT. Yeah, here we go. So I'll give you a quick example. So they came up, they pitched their idea, and then AI gave them this grade, this score, based out of 100. And when I gave them the worksheet for this, I made sure, let me see here, got the worksheet here as well. I made sure to outline this here. And these are the things that when you pitch your movie to the executives, the executive producers. These are what they're going to look at and grade your response on. So that was fun, and I would say, right now it's just giving 19 out of 20, and it's kind of talking generally about what works well. I would rather it have like, 1 to 20. What does it look like? What did you include? So that it's like checking off all the all the things. Um, but it just gave it out like this. Okay, so that's the criteria and asking about the AI use, human value add, evaluation of student insight, analysis, and synthesis that extends beyond the capabilities. So they used AI. What did they bring to this activity? Process documentation, I already talked about, and then critical evaluation skills, rubric elements specifically for judging the student's ability to assess and critique AI output. This one, talking about critical thinking related to the AI output. This is another thing that we talked about where um, uh, if you're going through an AI course, hopefully that course talks to you about lateral reading and taking the response and double checking the facts, searching for proof or evidence that that is true. Because, as we all know, AI will make up anything it wants as long as it's trying to make you happy with the results. So quick assessment deep dive, measuring the human value add. How do you do that? Distinguishing between the machine output and human synthesis. A novice way would be relying entirely on AI generation with minimal personal contextualization. This is what a lot of students are doing. They're just copying the assignment and putting it into chat, and then not even really reading it, just bringing it and submitting it. And so that's novice. That's somebody who doesn't know how to use the tool well, that could benefit from more literacy. Proficient would be uses AI for foundational structure, but layers personal analysis and specific course concepts. Um, adding that personal element in it, and then, relating it back to the course. And advanced would be demonstrating high-level synthesis where AI is the silent partner, giving unique insights, novel connections, and critical voice are going to be the dominant output in that. Evaluation of student insight, analysis, and synthesis is beyond the AI's capabilities. So that's where we still need the human in the loop. There's that human synthesis. All right, so how do we grade this workflow? How do we document the process, and then how do we evaluate that? Uh, the artifact is no longer the only evidence of learning. The workflow is now part of grade. So, reiterating process over product. The process documentation would be how students document their prompts, their iterations, their reflections. Just if they're going to use AI, how are they using it? And then reflecting on that, whether it went well or whether it was necessary. Sometimes the student will go back and forth with the AI so much that it'll lose the original plot that it's trying to that you originally prompted it for. And so that's good information for the instructor as well, as if the instructor knows about how prompts work and is they can kind of see, oh, this person didn't really prompt it in the most effective way. I wonder, if they're talking with a student, maybe you could prompt it this way to get a result that is more acceptable. So critical evaluation skills, everyone's saying critical thinking is dead now that AI is here, but I feel like it's more prevalent than ever. The rubric elements dedicated to judging the student's ability to assess the AI output. So like making sure that's in the rubric if you're going to have them identify hallucinations or check the bias. I made movie posters in that session today where I took their pitch and then just said make a movie poster for it. And one person noticed that it was like a certain look of person that was used for the main character in this movie. This seems a little bit more diverse, but all light skin. If I just like quickly look at these, and I think that's what the person at the presentation was also pointing out. Okay, so objectivity and bias reduction strategies. You've got your raw rubric data. You're going to put it in here for the AI quality assurance, kind of like a filter. So consistent language standards, making sure that the terminology is uniform, multiple perspective integration. So, this is something where I said earlier, kind of asking it, are there any perspectives that are missing? Bias detection and correction, identifying assumptions, cultural blind spots, and then accessibility and inclusion, serving to the diverse learners. I'll put this resource in the chat. This is a speech that we gave, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it before, but yeah, equitable AI strategies to mitigate bias. So this was a presentation that we gave at NCORE last year. And watch the presentation if you want. If you're Clover Park faculty, it's a hour and 37 minutes. So if you watch that and maybe do some experimentation for 20 minutes, that seems like 2 hours of PD. Here are a bunch of prompts that you can just copy and paste. So you get a response and you copy this one. Does this response rely on generalizations or outdated information? You just check the AI. So you can use those ones there. This is on our LibGuide presentations, mitigate bias in AI. Okay, so quality assurance here. Let's see, I want to kind of go through this quickly here. Quality assurance is validating the assessment architecture. This would be kind of the flow here of drafting, make sure the alignment between the rubric standards and the learning objectives and course learning outcomes and college-wide learning outcomes. Testing the rubric clarity with AI. So, this is where you take your rubric, pop it in, see what it comes up with. And then a human in the loop, reviewing if that works across different proficiency levels, and then calibrating. You wouldn't necessarily go back to drafting. I would say it's more of a, back to testing, human review, calibration, testing, human review. The drafting is really just in the first step, but that's a good way for rubric assessment design. Turning the criteria into conversation, AI enhanced feedback systems. So this one is the idea of using AI to create feedback. I don't know if this is the best way to do it. That's kind of what we had here. Um, but it's supposedly supposed to be objective. But I think human interaction is more important. So if a human can give you some feedback, maybe if the student is at home and they're doing homework, they'll have a resource that can give them feedback. But definitely if you are the human in the classroom, I'm sure the students would appreciate the feedback from you over getting it from the AI. But if you want to experiment with this, constructive response generation using AI to create specific actionable feedback. We kind of did that with the CWLO checkers, where it looked at the assessment and then thought about how it can align it to college-wide learning outcomes. Growth-oriented communication, developing feedback that encourages improvement and next steps. So here's where you are now. Here's how you can improve. I think that's what it did here. Yeah, what works well, and then concrete fixes to push it further. So here's the feedback on that activity. And then personalized learning support. Obviously, this is everything's going to be tailored to whatever the student puts in. And so that is going to help them where they need it the most, right? Opera, operationalizing the loop. Sorry. Feedback system features here. We've got template development. This is really great if you want it to be consistent throughout, just creating a template and then referencing that and using that for the training. Rubric integration, direct integration of rubric criteria with specific improvement suggestions. Oh, I don't know if I would want to do that. I think there's some apps out there that can create the rubric, but I think this is missing that human element. Self-assessment tools, student-facing tools that align with evaluation standards to ensure self-regulation. Giving the student access to the Google Notebook LM where you're creating the assignments or the content and kind of having them grapple with that and get their own uh, assessment. Actually, no, this is more self-assessment would be helping and encouraging your students to assess their own work. And then peer evaluation, structures that support collaborative learning by teaching students to use the rubric on each other. And that's pretty good. So kind of having them look at the rubric and do, it's like peer grading. What's that called? There's like a official word for it. Can't think of it right now, but it's where you got students looking at each other's work and helping each other out. Designing efficiency, AI enhancement opportunities. So once again, really quick at creating the criteria. It's also got multilingual support. If you do have, like, maybe you're at a HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution, maybe you want to add the rubric in English and then also Spanish. Standardization, developing consistent evaluation standards across multiple assignments. So once again, that's goes back to the template. Oh, and then very clearly talking about the template production here, detailed feedback template aligned with the rubric. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty nice graph here. I think this 70% is probably pulled from some study on the amount of time that's saved creating rubrics, but yeah, we all know creating rubrics by hand, that's very time intensive. So AI can help with that a lot. The integrated assessment ecosystem, design transparent rubrics and new criteria. Then you've got the student work. if they're working with AI or not. Then you've got the assessment, um, you've got the objectivity, the bias checks, having the students run a couple bias checks can help them with their literacy. And then the output is growth-oriented feedback. So it's going to give you feedback on how to improve, and then iteration. So what happens next, and then kind of loops around per assignment. Okay, I think this is the last slide. Second to last slide. This kind of key takeaways here. Transparency improves learning. Clear rubrics help student understand expectations. That's a given. AI enhances consistency, so AI assists in maintaining objectivity while human judgment retains the final decision. You want it to look consistent, but then you also want it to make sure it makes sense. So that's the human part. Integration requires new criteria. We must explicitly evaluate AI collaboration and human value add components. Making sure your rubric includes how you interacted with AI. And then feedback drives improvement. Systematic aligned feedback is the engine of skill development. Yeah, so feedback is going to help them to grow. Okay, once again, last kind of on the head with this one. The human element in the automated loop. While AI scales the mechanics of assessment, the goal remains deeply human to foster insight, analysis, and synthesis. Most effective assessment systems use AI to handle the what, so the grading consistency, the feedback generation, so that educators can focus on the why, which is that mentorship and curriculum design. So architecting these systems today ensures fairness and relevance for the students tomorrow. That's my TED Talk. We got the video here if you want to watch a quick summary of what I was just talking about, and then the podcast. And then this is very quickly talking about how to build better rubrics, and then delivering the feedback. So that's kind of the main focus here today. Bunch of articles down here, AI enhanced rubric design, practical design practices, and there's some templates there as well. These ones are pretty nice from QM. And then this one's just talking about policy and trends. Yeah, let's go ahead and hop over. Does anybody have anything that they want to add or talk about when we're talking about feedback or rubrics? Have y'all used AI to create a rubric for you? I know, Alyssa, you were saying that that's something that you are going to be doing. Do you want to talk about your experience?
I haven't tried it yet.
Oh,
I
shoot.
have
Hold on. Sorry,
rubrics.
sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
that's okay.
I know you're talking.
That's all
Now
right.
my audio is not-
Oh no,
I hope y'all haven't been talking. I know I've been talking a lot, but I
that's
just
okay. We can hear
gotta get
you great.
my Bluetooth connected here. Okay, can you say something? Sorry.
Yeah, is that
Okay,
better?
I'm ready. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna this is timely for me because I'm thinking I want to work on my rubrics. I teach Canvas 101 for those of you that don't know me or what I teach. I work for the state board. And I recently did a facelift on my class and I'm working through I had to update a bunch of stuff. So I thought, well, I probably better just keep doing some of the other things that I thought that I wanted to do over the years. And I have been using AI to speed me along. Not to do it for me, but to just check what I'm doing, make sure I haven't missed anything, make sure things sound clear. So I
Mm,
already have rubrics. And so I was just this week starting to think about how could I use AI to look at the rubrics that I have. And it's
hmm
easy in Claude because you can just screenshot and put it in and Claude looks at it and can read everything. I love that. I think ChatGPT does that now too.
hmm
But it didn't used to. So that was one of the reasons why I switched to doing some things in Claude because it's easier not to have to write out every single description of everything or download and upload stuff all the time. A screenshot's awesome. Um, so I have rubrics, which I think are pretty good. I mean, I've tilted my assignments. The rubric goes with the assignment direction. It's broken down into parts. I've got all the things I think the components to make it work. There are a few places I struggle. For example, the class is pass fail at 85%, but each assignment is also pass fail at 80 to 85%. So I send assignments back if you haven't achieved the skill at 80%. I just send it back and
Mm,
ask for another attempt. But I've had a few students complain that they feel like they have to get a perfect score. They don't really, but what they're doing is because my assignments are only 5 points, because it's not like a super high stakes anything, it's just 5 points. Um, some things on the rubric are 2 points because it's an important part of the assignment, but 3 out of 5 points is 60%. And people are complaining, just give me credit for what I have. And I'm like, it's not that I'm not giving you credit for what you have. You haven't met the 80% threshold. So I'm
yeah.
frustrated. They're frustrated. But there,
Mm,
I mean, there is room in there for me to take off a half point for something here or there. But if you haven't even attempted the skill and you have an entire screenshot missing, and I've gone and looked in your practice course and can't find that you've actually done the work I'm asking you to do, you get a 0 on that. I don't know what to tell you. You haven't done the work. Or maybe you did it somewhere else I can't see, but until you send me the screenshot and verify that you've done it, I can't say that you have that skill. I mean, we're already doing
sure.
this virtual. I'm not watching you do it. I mean, I don't really have another way to verify. So I thought maybe I could use AI to maybe help me figure out if I don't have my points balanced out correctly and maybe I'm not
Mm,
leaving enough room for mistakes. But when I did them, I kind of in my mind already weighted the things that I thought were most important.
yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking of doing. I haven't tried it yet. I did use Claude.
Do you have a rubric handy that we can use as an example for this score quiz?
Yeah, it's in Canvas though, so how would you want me to give it to you?
Can you just send me the link to the canvas and then I think I should be able to access it?
Are you enrolled in the class? You took the class a long time ago, didn't you, Ronald?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Um, I have the open version of the class where you don't have to be registered, but I'm not sure you can see the rubrics there, but I can look. Let me
Yeah, let me
just
see what you got and then
let me see if I can
see if
find
we
you a
can
link
experiment.
that's publicly accessible. My rubrics are really short, but they do have outcomes on them.
Okay,
So
cool.
it's the out from the outcomes tool in Canvas. So I mean, I think that I've
Oh,
been
nice.
thoughtful and careful in the design of the rubrics, but who knows?
We'll see. We'll see what AI thinks. And then while
Okay.
you're getting that up, Derek, have you used AI for rubric work at all?
Yeah, this is one area that I've definitely used, and I think you sort of help push or help me with the first one, but I've since used it to develop other rubrics. I can just feed it the assignment description, which oftentimes I write, but then it does take a really long time to come up with all the categories and everything like that.
Mm,
So yeah, I've definitely used ChatGPT to help with this, and it is there is still that human element of like checking its work, but it's I don't know, yeah, like you said, I don't know if it's 70% reduction in the time that takes, but it definitely cuts down the amount of time that it takes to develop a rubric.
for sure. Um, Alyssa, this is Canvas. You kind of went through and redid the look of this too?
Yeah, I did. I redid everything because I had to remove all the overview videos that Instructure retired.
Oh,
And
right.
because they moved all of the little videos into the guides pages, and that affected my entire page structure because it was structured as watch or read.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to make new sections. And while I was in there, it's just like, well, it's just getting a whole facelift. So
Okay.
I redid all of the
It looks cool.
graphics.
I like it.
Oh, thanks.
Is this an image on the top?
Yes, that is.
What about are these are not image are
Those
these
are not images, no. Those are
mhm.
divs with radial corners.
This one
That's an
too?
image.
That's an image. Okay, cool.
Uh-huh.
I just want to know the behind the scenes because
Yeah.
I like the way you did this.
Oh, thanks.
Um, okay, so I'm gonna pop this one in here into ChatGPT. Um, and let's see here. So the activity here, I kind of went through it. but practice creating comprehensive rubrics using AI assistance, experimenting with criteria generation, AI integration assessment, and feedback systems. Um, so I have the assignment context. I've got ChatGPT, got the objectives. We don't have, I think a student characteristics would be faculty in the
Yeah, it's faculty
CTC
who
system.
are taking Canvas 101 and they're either brand new teachers and brand new to Canvas, or they're experienced teachers whose colleges have decided to require Canvas 101.
Okay,
So it's
perfect.
basically CTC faculty.
There it is. Okay, so I'm pasting that in there. So I pasted help me develop comprehensive rubric criteria. I know that you have one, but I just want to see
Yeah,
what it
that's
comes
fine.
up with.
No, that's okay. You can give it my instructions. I don't care. You can
So
just
the
copy the
instructions are
entire thing and
here.
paste it in there if you want and say make a rubric for this and we'll that's what I was going to
That's
do,
what,
was see what it
that's what I'm
what it
doing.
would
So
come up
here,
with. Yeah.
create evaluation criteria that assess content knowledge, critical thinking. Okay, so here we go. This is a ready to use rubric framework that's aligned with building outcomes and rubrics. Super meta. I love that. Um, and then, okay, we've got the rubric, purpose of the rubric, criteria one. I don't really see. Oh, okay. So this is the criteria. So they need to have content, knowledge, and understanding. The focus here, understanding the Canvas outcomes, and rubrics, evaluate the student's understanding of purpose, structure, and functions. Here's the observable evidence. Here's the performance indicators. And then what's the objective language? Outcome fields are completed accurately and consistently, rubric and outcome function. So it's throwing me a little bit because it's not in a rubric format, but maybe that's just because it's not part of the instructions.
Yeah, maybe you could ask it to put it in a table or something as a rubric.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that, but I want to see because I think the next one here says here for each criterion, create a four performance levels with specific descriptors, and then
Yeah.
I don't
And
see
that's the
some.
other thing I want to change is I want to change the descriptors on my outcomes, because right now I don't use my outcomes for grading, but I never took the time to change the Canvas native language, which is meets expectations and does not meet expectations. And I don't
Mm.
really like that phrasing. So I mean, I have some work to do. And I don't really care for full marks and no marks either.
Oh, okay.
But when you're creating 15 or 20 rubrics, it gets kind of a lot of work, extra work to change all of that. So I did
Yeah,
figure
for
out
sure.
how to make a QTI file in Claude that could be imported into
Oh,
Canvas. I didn't even have to use
that's
a quiz
nice.
converter. I just had Claude help me write my questions and told it
Ooh,
what I needed it to do. And I gave it one of my QTI files as an example so it could see the structure, and it's perfect.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did
I
that yesterday.
remember
That was
those.
fun. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I also want to see, I know that there's if I go to this assignment, there is a rubric, there's a new rubric thing inside of Canvas, right? Oh,
I
this
think
is
there's a rubric enhancement tool, maybe. I'm not using it though. I don't have it turned on. So I have
no,
enhanced assignments on, but I don't
I
know that
think there's a
I've.
way to like import rubrics.
Is there a way to do that now? I haven't looked
I
recently.
I think so. I'm gonna just kind of see let me see. I
It's
submitted the
probably
assignment.
something you have to turn on in your course settings.
Oh no, it's something that you have to do when you go in through rubrics. And so
Oh,
you
it's
can
in
click on
rubrics.
this
Oh,
import rubric,
oh,
download the template,
cool.
and then let me see if I
Oh,
can
awesome. Okay, actually, that's exactly what I need to do what I'm doing. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm gonna put this. Yeah, you're welcome.
I hadn't seen that
And
before.
I know it's for y'all came here on time, and so I just want to be respectful of time. I'm gonna put this in here, this format, and then I'm gonna see if I can import that as a rubric just so that we can go through that process. But here it's going through the criteria. There's one more thing that I want to do. Um, want to do this one. So this is a student-friendly language check. And so I'm going to put that one in there. And then I'm going to copy this format and I'm going to say, Can you make a rubric following this format and create what kind of file is this? XX. Oh, this is CSV file. CSV file. So I'm gonna post that one in there. See how that goes. Let me see if I can get into a course that's just a nothing course right now, because I don't want to start messing around with that. So I'll just go into here to a tech F, and then I'll just copy this. I want to copy this assignment. I don't know why I can't duplicate assignments anymore. Like I was able to do that before, but okay. So what did I say here? We got to go to rubrics. Then we go to import rubric. We've got the template. Let's see what AI comes up with. So basically the template looks like it's got to have a rubric name, criteria description, the range, the rating name, the description, the points, the name, the description, the points, the name, the description. Oh, so it's rating, description, and then points. Name, description, points. That's what it is. Okay, so it's the three things per performance level. Let's see how this works. So, if you're not on a paid version of ChatGPT, I don't know if it will save the CSV file for you, but let's see here. Got module, criteria name. It's got those different 4 different criterias. It's got the description, and then what's this? Criteria enabled range. Let's just see if this works. I just want to see if there's probably some prompt engineering that needs to happen on the back end, but let's just see for the sake of time how this goes in. So this is module 8. I'm going to import this, and the import failed. The import failed was missing ratings for content knowledge and understanding. So it didn't do it right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste that error message and say, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to put the error message there and see if ChatGPT can try to figure out what's missing. It's missing ratings. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while to get it worked, all the little things worked out, but once you figure it out and you've got it, then you're good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This almost seems like something that you would want to set up a GPT for, where it's like it's got one job. You post it, you paste in whatever you want your rubric to be, and then it automatically like reformats it and saves it as a CSV. Okay, canvas format. So let's try this one more time. Put that one in there. Let's see if that did anything. There we go. One rubric was successfully imported. And so we've got a 12-point rubric with
Cool.
4 criteria. I'm gonna click on this one. And as you'll see, this
Oh
was
my
another thing that
gosh.
was like
Woo!
super annoying about making rubrics. It's like you take all the time to make all of them, and then you have to copy and paste or type in each one. And so there you go.
Nice.
Okay. And then it's got the longer description here.
Hmm.
It's got room for comments. It's got all of these things here. So pretty
I guess
cool.
you'd have to manually add the outcomes then.
That's a good question. We don't really mess with outcomes. So let me see here. Import.
Well,
Upload
my
your
outcomes
outcome.
are just flat because you can't do a lot of that with Canvas. But I do have all of the I have outcome groups for each of the main course outcomes, and then I've broken them down into the subcomponents for the module objectives, and then that's what's on my rubrics.
I'm gonna try this. one last thing before we come to an end, because I feel like we're on to something cool here. Um, there's also a way to import outcomes.
Yeah, I
So
know that. I've never done it. I just built mine by hand manually because I didn't have that many of them.
yeah, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. That's one of the other things that we're thinking about. Okay, what do we need AI to do? Like to have AI put that rubric with all the different things, like that would say like 30 minutes of, just
Mm.
putting all that stuff in there. If it's just one thing, then maybe it wouldn't be necessary. But let's just see what happened here when it's no longer available. This is outcomes import. Outcomes import. See what happens if we pop this one in here. Because that would be kind of cool too. If you can like go through and have your rubrics in there, and then you can have your thing. There was an error with your import. Please examine your file and attempt. Okay, well, I don't think I'm gonna
Yeah,
have time to figure that out, but
no.
um, the instruction they have a CSV format,
Hmm.
so it would just be once again prompt engineering to make sure that it follows the right system. Okay, so
Cool.
there's some more stuff here that unfortunately we don't have time. There was that feedback system, so if y'all want to look at how to have AI give feedback in a encouraging or growth-oriented tone, um, giving the next steps. There's some prompts there that you can experiment with. Um, but yeah, I think we're gonna call it there. Alyssa, thank you for
You're
allowing
welcome.
me to do that with yours. And Derek, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for doing my experimentation with me, Ronald, for me, whatever.
Yeah, 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 sweet.
In
I love it.
collaboration. That's
There we
good.
go. I love it. All right. Well, have a good weekend. And then we will continue moving on with applied AI next Friday. So,
You too. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
bye.